Well, if you thought you were done with triangles, then you're wrong, because chapter 5, we're going to do a lot more with triangles. However, the good news is there will be less proofs this chapter. So, main focus of today is what's called the mid-segment theorem. We're also going to be talking about graphing figures on a coordinate plane. So first, talking about mid-segments. A mid-segment of a triangle is a segment that connects the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. So in other words, a mid-segment is always going to go from midpoint to midpoint. So in a triangle, there would be three of them, because you have a midpoint on three different sides of your triangle. So XY is a mid-segment of triangle ABC. So is segment XZ, that would be a mid-segment, and then segment YZ is also a mid-segment. So every triangle has three mid-segments, three segments that go from midpoint to midpoint. And then we're going to have a theorem that goes along with that. This is the only theorem for today. So obviously we're talking about a mid-segment. Mid-segment of a triangle is two things. Number one, it's going to be parallel to that third side. So here, our mid-segment is segment DE. It's parallel to segment AB. It's also going to be half that segment's length. So the length of DE is going to be half the length of AB. Or you could think of it as AB would be double of the length of DE. So again, two things with the mid-segment of a triangle. Number one, it's parallel to the third side, and it's also going to be half the value of that third side. So here's some examples. We have a triangle. We have, again, three different mid-segments. First problem says that the length of RT is 2x plus 2, and BA is 10x minus 8. What is the length of BA? Well, first of all, RT and BA. The temptation a lot of times in geometry is just to set them equal. Well, RT is here, BA is here. So you're going to want to set them equal? No. Which one is half? Well, RT is half of BA. So one way to do it is say RT, which is 2x plus 2, equals 1/2 10x minus 8. So now you can go ahead and solve and distribute your half. So half of 10x is 5x. Half of negative 8 is 4. You can add 4 to this side to get 6. Subtract 2 here to get 3x. And then divide by 3. X would be 2. Which means BA, if we plug it in, 10 times 2 minus 8 is 12. So that's kind of one way to do it. The next example, we were talking about segment RS and segment CA. So again, if you wanted to, you could say RS equals 1/2 of CA. Well, another thing you could do is double RS, and then it should equal CA. So let's do it that way this time. So we can do 2, Rx is 4x minus 25. And that would equal the whole thing of CA, which is 2x plus 10. So there's kind of two ways to do it. You could double the smaller one, or you can take half of the larger one. Personal preference. Doesn't make a difference which way you do it. Should get the same answer either way, as long as you do the algebra correct. So again, we distribute. So 2 times 4x is 8x. 2 times negative 25 is negative 50. Add 50 to the right, and we'll get 60. Subtract the 2x from the 8x, 6x. So x is 10, which means RS, we plug in 10, is going to be 15. And just one last problem. We have CB is 4x plus 5. TS is 3x minus 25. So TS is the small one, right? So on this one, what I would do is, since you can double the small one, well, if I double the small one, that's going to get rid of my decimal. And I know a lot of people don't like to deal with decimals. Again, you could do half of this, but then you're going to have decimal here and a decimal here. So I'm going to double the smaller one. So that would give me 4x plus 5 equals 2 times 3x minus 2.5. So 4x plus 5 is going to equal 6x minus 5 when I distribute that 2. Subtract the 4x to both sides and add the 5 over here. So then we would get 10 equals, subtract that 4x is 2x, so x would be 5. And then if we plug that into CB, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 5 is 25. So not too complicated. You just got to be careful with which one you're doubling or taking half of. Then it says what segments must be parallel. So we can say that RT, segment RT, is parallel to, well, that should be obvious, segment BA. Then we have another mid-segment RS. RS is going to be parallel to segment CA. And then finally we have TS. Segment TS is parallel to segment CB. So that's dealing with your mid-segments. That should be the easier part of this assignment. Tape on my shoe. Alright, so complete the statement. Segment BC is congruent to blank and blank. So BC is here. Well, obviously, segment AB is marked, so we can put that one down. And then somebody will have trouble seeing the second one. Well, if we have CA, we know DF is half, right? And if these two are congruent, by definition of a midpoint, B would be a midpoint. In other words, it's cutting this one in half. Well, we know half of this one is also this side here, so we can also include segment DF. So another example would be, you could say segment AF, segment FE, and then segment BD would be another 3 that are congruent. So now to the coordinate stuff. It says, placing a figure in a coordinate plane, use 0, 0 as a vertex of your triangle. So you always want to make sure you have a point at 0, 0. So that's going to be a point of our triangle. Let's place an isosceles triangle with leg lengths of h in a coordinate plane. So h, that's not a number. It's a variable. We don't know how many. But we do know it's going to have 2 legs that are the same length because it's isosceles. So pick a number, how far you want to go over. It doesn't matter. So I can pick, count over 5 if I want. Doesn't mean my length's necessarily 5 because I don't know it. But if I'm going to go 5 this way to make it look isosceles, I would go 5 this way. Then we're supposed to write the points. Well, we always know the origin is at 0, 0. The tricky part is those other 2 points because we don't always know the numbers. Well, we know we stayed on the x-axis. So for our y value, how far up and down it went, didn't go anywhere. So our y value stays 0. But then you got to think, how far over did we go? Well, we went over h. So this point we would call HO. Whereas this point up here, did we go left or right? No, so our x value stayed at 0. But we went up h. So this coordinate would be OH. Again, h is a variable. We don't know how far away it is exactly, right? But it's that same distance both ways. So it really shouldn't be that hard, but people often get tripped up on there being variables that they have to graph. Just keep in mind, these letters, yes, they're letters, but they represent numbers like the ones you've been dealing with. So here it says sketch triangle ABC. Well, I already sketched it out for you. So here are the points. It gave me one at the origin, so obviously I'm going to put A right here at the origin. Then B is at 8H, so here's B. C is at 8, 0. So obviously you know where to put C, right? then since the other point's at 8h, well, if you have 8 and the x for both, it should go straight up. It shouldn't go left or right or anything like that. Now, how far up you go doesn't matter, but keep in mind you went up from, started at 0, went to h. Well, how far is it from 0 to h? It's h. Just like how far is it from 0 to 4? It's 4. So this has a length of h. We'll just mark that right now. So it says we're supposed to find the length and slope of each side, then give the midpoint of each side, then determine if it's a right triangle or isosceles. So there's like 11 things we got to find here. And you'll have some of that on your assignment as well. So let's start with the length of each side. So if we go length. Well, let's start with AB. So from here to here, what's the length? We'll find length, we use distance formula. Doesn't matter if you have an h, you can still use distance formula all the same. So for AB, the length, if we use our distance formula, you subtract your x's, 0 minus 8. That's negative 8, and that's going to be squared, plus subtract your y's. 0 minus h, or you could do h minus 0. That would be negative h squared. If you simplify that, that squared is 64. And negative h squared, well, that becomes positive. Oops, still be an equal. So this would just be plus h squared. Even though these are both perfect squares, that does not factor because of the plus. So this right here, this ugly thing, is the length of AB. The other lengths are pretty easy to find because we have AC. Well, that, okay, well, 0 to 0 is how far? 0. And then we have 0 to 8. Clearly, this is 8 apart. So AC has a length of 8. Then we have the length of BC. We kind of already said that. We go from 8, 0 to 8H. So we went up H. So BC has a length of H. So that takes care of our length. Then we want slope. Let's pick a different color. Keep everything separate. So slope. Remember, slope is rise over run. Slope's not going to be too hard. So AB. The slope, what's rise over run? Well, from A to B, look at your y values to see how far up you went. Use slope formula as well. But we go up h over 8. So our slope is h over 8. That's our rise over our run. AC, that's slope. So from here to here, it's a flat line. It's horizontal, so that slope's 0. Then BC, that's a vertical line, so that is undefined. Then we're supposed to find the midpoint of each side. Oh, let's go with blue. So, again, we'll start with AB. Midpoint. Add your x's up. Use the midpoint formula. Add your x's up, so 0 plus 8. Divide by 2. Well, 0 plus 8 is 8. Divide by 2 is 4. Then you add your y's. 0 plus h, that's h, divided by 2. So we just write that as h over 2. So that's our midpoint there. Then AC, 0 plus 8, again is 8, divided by 2 is 4. Add your y's and divide by 2. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. And then BC, so here, add your x's. 8 plus 8, 16 divided by 2 is still 8. Add your y's, 0 plus h is h, and h divided by 2 is h over 2. So, we have our lengths, our slopes, midpoints. Is it a right triangle? Well, if we have zero slope and undefined slope, yes it is. Otherwise you're looking for opposite reciprocals. So we can say that it's a right triangle. Figured if it's isosceles, we need at least two lengths are the same. Are any of these the same? No, they are not. So it's not isosceles. It actually would be scaling. So you have a few like this. There's a lot to do. So remember, you have formulas for all of these. So length, the formula you can use is distance, right? Slope, you have a slope formula. Midpoint, you have a midpoint formula. So it's just plugging these into your formulas is basically all you're doing. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but you only have a few and the rest of your assignment is pretty easy. So obviously your assignment's going to include graphing. So you'll need some graph paper. 3 to 13, 19 to 22, 24 to 26, and 47 to 52. Now, if chapter 4 was really hard, you don't think you did so well on the test. Okay, this is a fresh start. Start at chapter 5. So, what happens usually when you do poor is you fall behind, you get behind on assignments, or you miss a class, or you don't pay attention for a day. So, fresh start with chapter 5. Get it done right away. Stay caught up. If you stay caught up, you do much better than if you get behind, especially on your assignments.